imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is January 8th, 2014. Tonight I'm going to be getting into a bunch of things, a few topics. One of the things I want to talk about is how the media is brainwashing people, not only the media, but the powers that shouldn't be through the media, because the media, the mainstream media anyway, there should be no question as to whether or not the mainstream media are all just propaganda mouthpieces. It's just literally a propaganda arm of the administration, no matter who's in, the powers that shouldn't be, because the media is owned. We've talked about that before. Anyway, I'm going to talk about how I want to show you. I've been writing an article about this, but I figured I would talk about it on air too. I'll end up using the audio clip and cutting this snippet out and putting it probably as a little video clip inside of the article itself. But I've been writing an article about how they're brainwashing the American public, the general public, to be afraid of guns, to be deathly scared of guns. Oh my God, scary, scary, scary. Guns are bad. Guns kill people. They're gonna get me. Oh my God, I should be deathly afraid. That's pretty much what they've turned the general public into. I'll get into that. There's some audio I want to play for you with that. I want to talk about the war on drugs, the drug war, the crap drug war here in the U.S. and the money. The example I'm going to show you tonight is going to show you how just one city, and it's not just one city, you have cities all over the country doing this, but it's an example of one municipality, how they actually make money selling drugs and luring bad guys in and entrapping them in order to get these drug busts and stuff. And there's a lot of situations where you even have officers luring mentally challenged individuals, mentally retarded people, kids maybe that are autistic, whatever the case may be. Different cases. Each case has been a different scenario. But like some kids with autism, maybe whatever other, maybe kids that are just slow, whatever the case may be, they go after these people because they're low hanging fruit, easy targets. So I want to get into the war on drugs, and there's an interesting story about police abuse. I mean, we hear about police abuse of power and everything else, but there's an interesting story out of the local area where I live I'd like to share with you guys, which just highlights the examples of falsifying the kiddie porn charges against people. Chris Christie up in New Jersey, the governor up there, is abusing his authority. I want to cover something about that, and I want to get into I want to get into service animals, and I want to get into a personal anecdote about service animals and a personal story. I actually talked about this a little bit on Hangar 18 on Saturday, but I want to go over the laws and the regulations. I want to show you guys how how veterans and how people are being discriminated against, and how the law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is looked at differently by the VA than it is, I guess, by the general public, and they have their own discriminatory policies that don't apply to the rest of the world, apparently. And this has been a common fight with them, and not only for letting the animals into the hospital, but even for benefits for the veterans themselves. It's really, really, really disgusting. Just the stupid policies and the idiocy when you think about it. I mean, people have no idea. They think that the service animals. You see the guy out in the street with the service animal, that it's really easy for you to just go anywhere with it, but it's really not. I'll get into that as well. So there's a few things I'm going to talk about tonight. One thing I want to get into really quick before I get into any of these topics. Two things actually. One thing is I want to advertise something for a friend of mine, and I've urged everybody to go check it out. And I have it up. Well, if Federal Jack was up, you'd be able to see it. You could just go to Charlotte's website, deliberatedumbingdown.com, and I'm sure she's got links to it up there, because that's where you'd have to go to email. You can email her through the website there to contact her for it anyway, but I'm sure she's got links up for it. It's called The Global Road to Ruin Through Education. And it's a DVD box set. Remember, I've talked about this before. It's a 7-disc set along with a CD, so it's 8 discs in total, of all these different researchers, including Charlotte herself, blowing the whistle about what's going on with the education, what's the agenda, why they're dumbing people down, how they're doing it, how the levels that they go through to cover it up, Common Core, all of this stuff. And it's not just new stuff; it's some newer stuff, some older stuff. But she's been working a while putting this whole thing together, and the CD has all sorts of PDFs and everything else on it. It's called The Global Road to Ruin Through Education. You can get it. Just go to deliberatedumbingdown.com, and if I haven't been on Charlotte's site, in fact, while I'm talking to you right now, it's the power of the internet. I can look at that. There you go. Let's go right to Charlotte's website, and yep. If you go right to Charlotte's website, there's a link for it. And if you click on it, it brings up the YouTube trailer for it, which is actually 26 minutes long. In fact, if anybody wants to, if you go to the chat room, go over to Truth Frequency Radio, because yes, by the way, I know Federal Jack is still down. My guys are working on it. Remember, these guys work on a volunteer basis, so I can't put a gun to their heads. I can't afford to pay them, so it gets done when it gets done. It's the way it is. It sucks. I wish I had a bigger crew that would work voluntarily, but believe me, I've dealt with people over the years that want to volunteer, and they tell me they want to volunteer, and it usually about 98% of it stops right there with the offer of volunteering, and then if they follow through, the volunteer service drops off within a few short weeks, if it's anything is ever done at all. So it's very hard to find people that will volunteer and give you a couple hours to work on something here and there. So hopefully it'll be back up in the next day or so, but I just can't promise anything. It kind of sucks that way. Anyway, if you go over to Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, Chris has a chat room over there. Just go up in the header bar. You'll see the little tag. It says chat room. It's between Truth Music and Login. It's right there up in the header bar. Click on that. It opens up the Listen Live page. You can listen there, and there's a chat room. You don't have to chat, but the reason I tell you this is because anytime I'm going to drop a link, that's where I'm going to throw it into the chat room. So right now I'm going to drop the link for Charlotte's website in there. I just dropped it in there. If you want to go there, go over and check it out. There's a widget on the front of her site, like I said, that will play the 26-minute trailer, which gives you kind of a little snippet from each speaker and everything. And then there's a way for you to purchase it right underneath it. So you can check it out. Plus, you can get her book there and everything else. Just go to deliberatedumbingdown.com. Charlotte Iserby is a great great person. She is a very good friend of mine. And I actually will be playing my latest interview with her that I did about a month and a half ago. Between the road trip and then surgery, I haven't had a chance to get it finished and air it for you. But in the next week or so, I'm going to play my latest interview with her on Common Core, and we talk about this very disc set. It's called Exposing the Global Road to Ruin Through Education. I forgot the word exposing. So, Exposing the Global Road to Ruin Through Education. It's an 8-disc set. You can get it at Amazon, apparently, and just click, if you go to Deliberate Dumbing Down, there's a widget for it right there. Just right on the widget, and then you don't have any issues, and bam, it should take care of that. So, the other thing I wanted to bring up before I forget was if you want an autographed copy of Judith Vary Baker's book, Me and Lee, yes, you can purchase it still. It's not that it's not available. You can still purchase it at Amazon, or you can go to Trine Day, which is the publisher. But I have autographed copies from the 50th anniversary, from November 22nd, that Judith signed on November 22nd. So they're kind of special because they're 50th edition, copies. I had 3 boxes of them. I already sold out of an entire box and a half in, a month that I've been back. And I haven't really been doing heavy advertising on it. So they're limited. However many I have left, when they go, they're gone. You get a free Truth Frequency Radio bumper sticker with it. I throw in some federaljack.com business cards and swag and whatever. Right now I have a copy of Wake Up Call, which was put together by a good friend of mine, documentary about the one world government agenda and everything. He put it together, I think, back in like 2007, between 2006 and 2008, we'll say. Well, let's say 2007, but it's a good film, and he gave me a high quality copy of it to burn, and I have about 50 or 60 copies left. And what I do is every time someone orders a book, I give them a free copy of that as well. So you get a free DVD while they last, while I have supplies of those. Truth Frequency Radio bumper stickers while I have them, and a bunch of federaljack.com business cards and flyers and anything else I have laying around. Sometimes I have pocket constitutions I throw in there, but I ran out of them. Anyway, it's the same price as you'd pay online. It's $30. You could probably get it for a few bucks less on Amazon, but again, you don't get all the free stuff. You don't get it autographed, and shipping's included. So $30, you get all that stuff. It's autographed and shipping's included. And when I ship them, I always get a tracking number on them. So I email each individual customer with a tracking number so they can track their package from start to finish. So that's all included, just in case anybody wants them. And it's not like I'm making, I'm getting rich off this. I'm doing this as a favor for Judith. It's not like I bought a bunch of her books either and had her sign them and secretly ran away to try to make money. Judith asked me to do this because she had a couple boxes of books left over after the whole book tour for the couple weeks that she was here around the anniversary. And they had brought like however many boxes of books from the publisher. They would have them sent to the locations that they were going, and at the end of it, the one of the last ones was in Dallas, and she had a bunch of these books left over. And long story short, she asked me if I would help her get rid of them. So I'm going to help her get rid of them, and she signed all of them. We sat down on the 22nd, and like I said, she signed all of them to kind of make it special. And like I said, with shipping and everything, it's the same price as if you bought it from the publisher itself. It's just you get a few extras, and it's autographed by the author. So, and again, it was autographed on the 50th, so it's a little bit special. Anyway, let's get into the stories that I want to talk about. Let's see. The first thing, I got enough time. Okay, let's go over Chris Christie and his abuses of authority, and then when we come back, I can get into my rant about service dogs and a few other things, and probably spend about 25 minutes on that because I want to explain a few things. I want to give you guys a bit of an insight into service animals and what it's like for somebody with a service animal, because yours truly has one, and my wife had one until she passed away about 6 months ago. You all remember, for the older listeners, I shared that with you when Lulu, my golden retriever, my wife's service dog of 14 years, passed away. I talked about it. But I want to share with you a little bit of insider information about service animals, maybe help those who have seen them but don't have them understand a little bit better. Maybe urge people that you might know someone that could use one. We'll get into that. Anyway, so I want to spend some time on that, and then I want to get into the brainwashing about guns. But let's focus right now because we have we got about 11 minutes before the break sneaks up on us. So let's get into the first thing I want to tackle tonight, which is Chris Christie's abuse of authority. Now, I'm not targeting Christie individually per se. I mean, this guy's obviously, he's just a perfect example of mob-type politics and thuggery, right? And Jersey is my old home state, so the governor of New Jersey, he's been criticized by many for a lot of different reasons. I mean, he flips sides back and forth between pretending to be a Republican and then I'm going to be a Democrat and then I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. He can't decide what he wants to be, right? What side of the fake aisle, or what fake side of the aisle, I should say, he wants to pretend to adhere to. But anyway, he's trying to kiss up because he wants to run for president in 2016. So apparently, during his re-election campaign for New Jersey governor, he was running against a lady who was a Democrat, and this is when he was famously switching back and forth, hopping from side to side. But this past election cycle, and while he was running against this lady, this female Democrat, which actually, and I can't remember her name, that's why I'm referring to her as a female Democrat. I'm trying to be as descriptive as I can because I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now. Anyway, while he was running against her, he was trying to show that he could bring both sides of the aisle. And I'm doing air quotes when I say that because I don't buy into the whole left-right paradigm. But he was trying to show to the people that do buy into that he could bring Democrats and Republicans together. That way he can run on that for president in 2016. That could be his, I have the power to bring Democrats and Republicans together and heal this wound and unify the aisle to do the right thing, And he wanted Democrats to back him. He wanted all the governors of New Jersey, he wanted the governors, listen to me, he wanted all the mayors of New Jersey to back him. And the mayor of Jersey City was a Democrat and did not back him, backed the Democrat opponent. And because of that, there was political fallout, we'll say, which happens. And the political fallout in this case was apparently they decided to close a couple lanes down going to the George Washington Bridge for a few days for a quote-unquote traffic study. Now, if you've ever gone to New York City via Route 80 over the GWB, right there where 80 and 95, there's that junction, and then the George Washington Bridge is right there. You understand that it's already a mess, and that traffic is already a mess down there. And last time, I don't know if they've paved, but I mean, the ruts were so bad from all of the traffic that you're about a half a mile before you get to the junction there, it would be like riding in a slot car because your tires would hit the ruts and you just ride in the ruts. You could tell if you were riding out of the ruts because it would throw you in or out basically. Anyway, the area is congested because there's only a certain amount of space they have to work with. It's not like they can widen a lot of it because you're coming up right to the edge there, and you have the highway, all the existing interstates and highways that were built a while ago. They took most of the space that they could take. There's parts of, because it goes through, I don't want to say mountainy area, but I guess for compared to Florida, it's nothing. But I guess you could say it's mountainy area there, not really mountainy, but maybe hills or whatnot. But you have to go through chunks of earth and rock, we'll say, and to move things, it's just not. They're not going to widen it. Good luck. It's all built up around there anyway. There's no place to go. I don't even think an elevated roadway would solve problems there. Anyway, if you shut 3 lanes down, you shut 1 lane down, it causes a problem. Let's be honest. Traffic jams, and this is something I learned when I was a tow truck driver. What is it? Up to 30? It's a 30. I have to look this up, but I think it's 33 or 30% jam rate from a single car accident that's not even in the lane of travel, that's in the shoulder, because the cops are there, people are rubbernecking, people are slowing down. So that jams, I think maybe it wasn't 30, maybe it was like 23% or something like that. This is numbers I'm going back from my master tow certification from like 10 years ago at least. But it's something like, we'll say like 23, maybe it's lower, maybe it's like 23%. And then if it's in the lane of travel, it's upwards of like 30-something percent, and then, 2 lanes, blah, blah. So they closed 3 lanes down for a quote-unquote traffic study. So that jams traffic up, caused gridlock throughout Jersey City, which is right there, for 3 or 4 days. Now, not only does it back traffic up, on the highway, but now you also have it backing up people that are trying to get onto the bridge inside the city. Well, now all that local traffic, that's backing up too, right? Because now it backs up into the local arteries, and if it's that bad, it'll back traffic up, depending on, where you are. It could back it up for 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile, 1/2 a mile down some of these streets. People go, well, who cares? It's just traffic. So you leave a little earlier. Just stop being inconvenienced, you whiners. Okay. What about ambulances? What about emergency services? What about fire trucks that can't get to a burning house because there's literally a traffic jam and there's no place for them to go because there's trees and pedestrians and houses and buildings all around? So it's not like they can drive up on all the sidewalks. It's not like they're in the suburbs and they could drive across someone's front lawn, right? No. And in fact, now, apparently, because of this whole debacle, and of course, Chris Christie's office is saying that they don't know anything about it, right? I guess he's taking a page from the president. Hey, I didn't know what was going on, right? Famous words of these leaders, these people in power. So apparently he didn't know that his staff was doing this. First they denied it. Now I guess the emails have come out and they have no other options but to admit it. There's emails from people on his staff to an appointee over on the Port Authority on the New Jersey side who's a good childhood friend of his. Yeah, he didn't know about it. Telling them to shut the lanes down and cause traffic and ha, this is what this guy gets. And, these kids they were literally causing kids to be late to school. And I know, okay, public school, all that, I get it. But the point is, they tell you all the time, it's about protecting the children and, it's for the children. They need to be in school on time. And they bust your chops if your kid's late to school, because your car broke down. But here you have the governor abusing his power and, politically punishing somebody and, because of or punishing them for political reasons, and it turns physical because now you have this traffic backup. Kids are late to school. That causes problems. People are late to work. I'm sure people got fired because they were late to work. What about, again, ambulances? Well, apparently now a lady who was passed out and waiting for EMS to arrive, and EMS was delayed in getting there because of this traffic delay, because of the lane closures, she died. Now, can it be argued that it has nothing to do with it? I'm sure you can find an attorney that could say that, but you're going to tell me that there's no way at all that her being passed out and having delayed medical response to get her to the hospital to see the doctor and perhaps get her fixed, that had nothing to do with her death whatsoever. And you'll have lawyers that'll work for the city that'll probably say that, because I'm sure the city's going to get sued. I'm sure with this evidence, I'm sure Chris Christie's going to get sued. The two people that the one appointee to the Port Authority and the other person that worked for his cabinet resigned, and I'm sure they'll get a job elsewhere doing something else down the road. Once the heat falls out, not so much in his cabinet, but he'll probably. They'll one of his supporters or something that owns a company will find some place for them to land because they took the fall for their boss, and now the governor says, "Oh, I didn't do anything about it," or "I knew nothing about it. I had nothing to do with it," and it's very shameful that this happened, and blah 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 blah. You know what? I bring it up for this reason. Okay, I bring this up for this reason because. In 2016, they're going to. This guy might run for president, and then yes, this could be an attack by political foes behind him trying to release this type of information because all these politicians have dirt on them, right? The stuff only comes out when their enemies really want you to notice it. But could it be that? Well, maybe. But this is a classic example of shocking abuse of authority. This guy he's going to be put out there, and he's already been talked about by some Republicans as, oh, he's our only chance at defeating a Republican, or we should put him up against Hillary. I've heard people talking about this because look, Hillary's going to run. It's Hillary 2016. If people haven't figured that out already, they should have figured that out years ago. I've been talking about this for years. Since Obama's first term in office, I've been saying that Hillary is going to be the next choice because it'll be the first woman president, and they're going to go after the females. You watch. You watch. They've already been prepping the field. The war on women, insensitive men. Just look, I'm telling you. And guys, these old school senators and congressmen, whether they're old or just old school way of thinking or stupid or idiots or whatever you want to call them, a lot of them fall right into it. And man, people just don't know how they're being manipulated. Anyway, I wanted to just bring it up really quick to show you that there is abuse of authority like this, okay, rampant abuse of authority, and look at the fallout because now there's a physical death that's connected to it. Whether it's 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, there's a physical death of a human being now connected to this political punishment doled out by a governor, someone with power. So it's shocking abuse of authority, right? No, it's not really shocking when you understand this goes on all the time, but just figured I'd throw it out there. All right, when we come back, Service Dog. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, as I said going into break, the story I was talking about, Governor of New Jersey is just like the rest of these people, just another thug with power. And you could see you could see that his goal is to be president, and that's why he signs off on the legislation he doesn't veto things, pushes ahead with certain things. He even goes against things that he's once campaigned against or said that he wouldn't do, right, as most politicians do. So just goes to show you he's just another one of these thugs, and they will abuse their authority, and unfortunately, at least one person looks like was physically more than, maybe getting yelled at or being late to work or something like that. Somebody was physically affected to the point where perhaps their death could be attributed to the fact that they didn't get, the ambulance could not get to them because they were delayed because of the whole traffic situation, because these lanes were shut down for political punishment. So just goes to show you that this thuggery does exist. Remember that in 2016, if somebody tells you that Chris Christie, or between now and 2016, if somebody tells you that Chris Christie is a good candidate to run for president, they're all controlled. And this ought to show you that if this guy's down for that type of thuggery, then if the powers that shouldn't be went to him and said, look, yeah, we'll make you the next president, but you got to go, you got to toe the line. You don't think he's going to? You think he's going to stand up and, I'm going to buck the system. Right. Doesn't work that way. Anyway, service animals. I wanted to talk about this. I want to take a couple minutes to share some information with you guys. I don't often, I share a little bit of my personal stuff about, my personal life with you guys. I don't often talk about stuff, but I do share some stuff. So I'll let you guys, in to a portion of my life to understand perhaps people with service animals a little bit better. I myself have a service animal, and my wife has service dog, and my wife had a service dog. When we get enough money, we perhaps will get her another one. But luckily, over the years, through diet and yoga and a few other things, we have, I don't want to say cured the problem, but we've stopped it, at least for now, or at least been able to keep it at bay or learn to control it. And my wife used to have seizures. To the point where you couldn't even tell when she was going to have them. There wasn't, sometimes there are tells. She would just have them out of nowhere. She would have really bad ones. So her golden retriever, Lulu, and, she was my dog after I met my wife over 8 years ago, when we started going out and then we got married. But Lulu saved her life, and she was with her, for 14 years, but she literally saved her life on at least 3 occasions that I know of, on 3 separate occasions. And that dog made all the difference in my wife's life when she was younger and she was having a lot of problems with seizures. And she doesn't have them anymore, but that dog made a world of difference. I mean, she literally saved my wife's life at least 3 times that I know of. So, when people tell you that, people are just taking they slap a vest on, they just want to take their family pet with them. They just want an excuse to take their family pet with them somewhere. It kind of pisses me off because people really don't understand what a service animal does. So, I want to share this stuff with you. So, this dog saved her. This dog was part of her. It was her best friend. They had a bond that was unbreakable. It was amazing to see. I myself have that same bond with my service dog. She helps me because, believe it or not, I have hearing issues. And even though I'm on air and I can talk normally and stuff, that's one of the reasons I use the headset setup that I do, because it makes my life a little bit easier. But it's also because I can hear much easier through my setup that I have. And I can hear myself in my ears, which enables me to control the volume of my voice. But I do have hearing damage from when I was in the military. So there are certain things that's hard for me to hear. So I have a dog. I have a service animal for hearing. And she knows that there's certain sounds that she responds to, and she'll let me know. She'll come and get me and make me follow her into certain things. And that's what she's trained for. That's why I can carry her around. She's tiny. She's a little teacup Shih Tzu. She's only 8 pounds. I don't need a big dog for it. But I don't qualify for hearing aids. The VA says that I'm not deaf enough and my hearing damage isn't significant enough. And the hearing issues that I have aren't significant enough to give me hearing aids. And some of the part of the problem is I have tinnitus really bad in my ears. Very loud ringing. So it's hard for me to hear certain things because of the ringing. And the Monster, the dog, my service dog, the one that you normally hear me refer to as snoring dog, she's trained for certain things. That's why she barks like a maniac at certain things. And sometimes I have to tell her to, she gets so into it, I have to clap my hands and I have to yell her name to get her to stop. But that's what she does. She lets me know certain things. She lets me know of certain noises. That's exactly what a service animal for hearing is for, whether you're hard of hearing or completely deaf. Again, I don't qualify for hearing aids. So we trained her for this. She was already my dog, and we had gotten her, and her and I had already had a tight bond, and there were certain things. She really had a knack, actually, for taking care of me and looking after me. She had just started doing this on her own. Some animals do this. Long story short, she ended up being a good service dog for me. And she rides around in my backpack. I have a special backpack that I carry her in, and she can stick her head out the side. Her and I have a system that the two of us, even though she doesn't speak English, we can communicate with one another. Anybody that's ever had a service animal understands. Now, she's not like a regular pet. The dog does go with me. She went with me on the car trip out to Dallas and back. She goes everywhere. She goes to restaurants. She's got, I've gotten her service dog tags to make it a little bit easier to understand. The reason I share this with you is because, I want to let you know a little bit about why I have dog. Okay, so you like to personalize a little bit. You understand that they do perform a service. There are service dogs for seizure alert dogs. There are service dogs for hearing. There are service dogs that will open doors. They're trained to, sometimes people in wheelchairs, maybe they're handicapped. They have dogs that are trained where there'll be pieces of rope tied off to cabinet doors and a refrigerator, and the dog is trained depending on what the handler tells it to do. I don't want to say owner, because you don't really. I don't treat my animals like they're my possessions. I treat them like they're equals. And people are going to say, "What?" Well, I don't treat when I say equal, I mean equal living creature. I don't treat my animals as if they're my piece of property to do with what I want. I mean, if I have to get protective of it against somebody else, well, then maybe I might say that's my dog or whatever. But I treat them as if they're another living creature, which they are. So I try to treat them with that level of respect. Anyway, the dogs can be trained for many different reasons, many different things. Like I said, they can be trained to open doors. They can be trained for kids. Now, one of the big things, a lot of kids with autism, they're getting service dogs. A lot of guys with PTSD are getting service dogs. And I bring this up because I'm going to get into the VA thing in a minute, but also even in the general public are very unaware of the law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and how it actually requires them to allow people with a service animal into the establishment. But there's also an abuse of it. So I wanted to go over all of this and bring all of this up. If I'm gonna talk about service animals and try to explain some of the benefits and stuff to you, I might as well air all the dirty laundry, go over everything, and get it all out there so someone can't go, oh, well, what about this? So, and there's really not any dirty laundry. I should just say put everything on the table. But anyway, first and foremost, the service dogs for PTSD, I can't stand, I'm just going to say PTS. Screw the D, because it's not a disorder. Because anybody can get PTS, by the way. I mean, you can get post-traumatic stress from being in a car accident. You can have it from watching a family member die. You could, it's not really, and I've heard even doctors say this. Well, don't you have to be in the war to get post-traumatic stress? No. You don't have to be in war to have PTS. You experience horrific things in war, so a side effect of that is the PTS. But you could have it, again, from being in a car accident. What about a woman who's raped? They experience PTS. Same thing. They experience the same type of PTS. The sweats, the panic attacks, the anger. Maybe, depending, everybody has it a little bit differently. There are other symptoms. The point is, post-traumatic stress is something that we can all go through. It's how your body naturally deals with a very traumatic experience, something that was very horrific for that individual. And it really depends on each individual. It's not a matter of, you can only get it if you were attacked by an enemy combatant, from a tank, or, you had a shell dropped on you. And that's how the government and the VA and the military, tries it. They have to, you only clarify for this, under these circumstances, and then everything else falls under this. And they do that for other reasons, too, to hide casualties, and they keep casualty numbers down and everything else. Anyway, so PTS is widely misunderstood, and that's a huge problem because you see it now in law enforcement where, the way they treat veterans with PTS, and I'll get into that in a minute. But these service dogs are really helping people, whether they're veterans, whether they're, rape victims, maybe somebody survived an attempted murder and, their family was killed, but they survived, whatever. Dogs are being paired with people for PTS, and the dogs are trained. One of the ways that they help people with PTS is if you have post-traumatic stress, nobody likes to have somebody come up behind you. Okay, anybody that has PTS, it's one of the things. They don't like people coming up behind them, unaware, and like grabbing their shoulders and stuff. Like it's understandable. You see a friend, you go up, hey man, you come up behind them and tap them on the shoulder. But if that person has PTS, that's very different for them. People that have service dogs for PTS, the dog is trained to step in between that person and their handler and be a buffer. Even if they have to walk around the person or get behind them, whatever, they will act as a buffer for that person. And the dog also lets the handler know that there's somebody there, and that helps alert the person so that it doesn't trigger an episode. And I'm not, by the way, that doesn't give people the excuse to act up and then just say blame it on PTS or anything like that either. But there are people that people that have never experienced it or have a complete misunderstanding of it really don't have a clue of what these people go through unless you've gone through it yourself. I think that's really the only way, or had a loved one, and helped them, not watch them or make fun of them or ridicule them or critique them, but actually help them go through it, then you would have a different understanding of it. So these dogs are really helpful, the service animals. They're literally changing people's lives with PTS. I mean, saving veterans, guys that were going to kill themselves, saving people, right? Doing stuff that their medications and all this other crap can't do, these animals are doing. They're giving people a reason to live. They're helping them literally with a service. They're keeping people away from them physically, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So I bring this up because, and I bring up the issue of the VA up with them, with PTS and service dogs, because when I was at the VA the other day with my service dog, who Monster comes with me all the time, I was sitting with a medical professional, we'll say, and a nurse in a private room. Now, the door was open, but the room, you had to go in and you had to speak to her. It was one of the things one of the clinics I had to go. I had to go see the nurse when I was done, and they schedule everything while you're there too. But I had to go, to finalize everything. Anyway, I'm sitting with her, and because they're doing construction on the hospital right now, the temporary VA police headquarters room is right down the hall, so they have to walk by. And there's a waiting room across the hall for people that are waiting for their medications and stuff. So what these cops do is they walk up and down the hall and they mean mug everybody in the hall. They stare into the waiting rooms and they mean mug everybody in the waiting rooms. So this one walked by and he saw a Monster in the bag, because I'm in a wheelchair right now, so she sits on my lap in the bag. And he stops, does a U-turn, comes back into the office. Long story short, he proceeds to ask me what kind of dog she is. So I knew what he was doing already. And I looked at him. I said, "Oh, she's a Shih Tzu." And he goes, No, that's not what I mean. I mean, what service does she do for you? Now, according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, for service dogs and stuff, when you look up the law pertaining to service animals, technically that's personal medical information. Okay, so I don't have to tell him why I have the dog. Okay, but according to the VA has a different set of rules. So the VA recently only started allowing more than just seeing eye dogs in. If you weren't blind, they wouldn't even allow your animal in until about 2011, 2012, around there, because a lot of veterans advocacy groups and veterans families and stuff were complaining because vets were getting arrested with their service dogs or getting hassled, not being allowed in. So they changed the rules, and now their rules are if it does a physical service. But because the VA still doesn't believe that PTSD dogs help veterans with PTSD, they won't give funding to help people that have dogs. Even if the VA actually got the dog for the veteran for PTSD, they won't help with any supplies for the animal at all. So and I'm not saying that the VA should, oh my God, these people get free pets or anything. But if they're technically in that situation, the way it works with the VA is they do have to supply certain things. So like the VA doesn't want to deal with service animals for PTSD, okay, or PTS, right, at all. So they just say, nope, we'll give you the dog, we'll give you a service dog for PTS, but we don't want to have to take care of it like we would anything else that we gave you. If they gave you a scooter or if they gave you anything else, they have to maintain it and fix it if it breaks, okay, because it's a medical device. If you're getting the service animal for a condition that's service connected, well, technically they're supposed to take care of it. Long story short, they don't want to. Okay, and I think that's part of the reason why, because it's about money, and I think that's part of the reason why they don't want to, that they have this rule about, that they teach the cops about, don't allow PTSD dogs in the hospital or whatever. We don't recognize it. So because they don't recognize that the dogs help veterans with PTSD, which is a crock, they don't allow veterans that have dogs strictly only for PTSD in the hospital. They'll tell them they have to leave with the dog. We don't consider that a service animal. We consider it nothing more than a family pet. Now, how do I know this? Because I had to run in with this cop who decided to get into this with me, and I said, well, she's for hearing. And he said, well, she's for hearing. And his tone changed. And once he realized that she was for a physical, a actual physical reason, she performed a physical duty for me. And his whole tone changed. And then I proceeded to question him and keep him in the room now, and I asked him, I wanted to find out what the policy was, because Americans with Disabilities Act, most federal buildings have to comply. Apparently, the VA feels that they don't have to. Now, the fact that this cop felt empowered by that is one of the things that pissed me off when I went through this experience, because, and I didn't have time to argue with him and get into a fight. I mean, I already dragged it out and tried to, pick his brain as much as it was, to the point where the nurse was kind of pissed off. She was pissed off at him. You should have seen the look she was giving him, because he barged right in. But she didn't say anything to him either. She didn't tell him to get out, because you could tell she was afraid. Because, again, he was walking around with his gun on his hip, I may add. So he was dressed up in his little detective outfit, like he was wearing a suit without the blazer jacket, and his gun and his badge on his hip, like he was a detective in the Miami PD or something. But he wasn't. He was a VA cop. Why they can't wear their uniforms and why they have to go plain clothes or dress like detectives is beyond me. But he felt, I guess he felt it his duty to tell me the VA's policy, and he proceeded to brag how they had just arrested a veteran with PTSD the week before, which, by the way, that technically that violates that veteran's rights, because you shouldn't be bragging about that. That's like a personal incident, but and the fact that the guy has PTSD, so that's violating the guy's HIPAA rights. But I digress. He brags how he arrested, or how the VA police had arrested this veteran the week before who had a PTSD dog. And he said to me, if the PTSD dog worked, he wouldn't have had an episode, and he wouldn't have gotten upset. So, because this cop is ignorant and actually has no idea what people go through with PTS, and obviously has no understanding other than, oh my God, PTS or PTSD equals dangerous vet, beware. And I'm sure they beat the crap out of the guy, because if the guy was having an episode, I'm sure they grabbed him, and I'm sure the guy probably wasn't friendly about it, and I'm sure the dog wasn't friendly about it, so they probably tased the guy, and probably who knows what they did to the dog. I mean, he didn't say they shot it or killed it, but I mean, I'm sure they tased it or kicked it or did something to it. These are hospital police, by the way. These aren't like federal agents that can run around like NCIS. Their jurisdiction is on VA hospital property only. That's it. They're VA police. Their jurisdiction does not go anywhere other than VA property. So, like, they actually have their own police cars. I'm not kidding you. They have those three-wheeled electric-powered scooters that they can stand on. You'll see people riding them around at Target, and I've seen the NYPD driving around. The VA police have those things, because apparently, I guess the VA hospital grounds are too large to walk. Really? They have cop cars, not one or two, but there's probably at least 5 or 6 of them I've seen. And they have their own fleet of cars for the VA hospital. These cops give vets parking tickets because there's no parking at the hospital, right? There's inadequate parking. So, like in the mornings when you go there, there's no parking. People are often late for their appointments and stuff. So, people will park not in a parking space, but maybe along, the side where there's a concrete curb or something. And the cops go out and give them parking tickets. Parking tickets. Because there's inadequate parking spaces at the hospital for these vets who, the guys that go there are not going there because they're malingering or anything. These guys a lot of them are older World War II Korean vets, Vietnam War vets. Some younger guys like myself, but a lot of the older crowd. And they're getting tickets. And then when they go in and they complain about it to the VA cops, I've seen the cops tase people and arrest them. At a hospital. Now again, VA hospital police. The Veterans Administration, it was created to supposedly help veterans and, our health care and blah, 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 right? And these guys are, not helping the situation. So again, they're getting the same retarded training that the localized cops are getting, but you could see that there's this total misunderstanding about PTS and lack of understanding and ignorance of it, where and of course the demonization of, oh my God, veterans have PTS, oh my God, scary PTS, guns, oh my God, right? So now anybody with PTS is now labeled evil, and oh my God, they're going to kill your kids and everything else, right? Complete misunderstanding about it. Anyway, this officer, just the way he felt entitled by the power that, I guess, that he feels that he has, because we don't allow certain types of service animals in here, like as if as if everybody and their mother is bringing their family pet to the VA. And maybe there is a case once in a while where somebody does fake it, because there is that too, where people abuse the Americans with Disabilities Act, because according to the law, you don't have your dog. There is no national registration or certification for a service animal. Some service animals require training. Some people have animals that they use for, like, therapy dogs. And, there is a voluntary registration of it that you can register. I'm doing air quotes when I say that you're a service animal, but even they don't consider certain animals service animals. But the law does. The law clearly states that. And look, people use a lot of animals for anxiety and stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I think it would be better if someone went out and got a Shih Tzu or a Golden Retriever or a German Shepherd or whatever kind of dog, rescue a dog from a pound, than go get Xanax or spend $800 a month on some, antipsychotic or something that they probably don't need to be on anyway. They're just being put on it because their doctor gets kickbacks for prescribing that crap. Probably cost you less to have the animal. You feel unzombified. There's a lot of guys that were on PTS medication that felt like zombies. They couldn't function. They got the service animal, and they were able to get off the medications, and they have somewhat of a normal life again. There's a lot of people that use service animals for anxiety. Anyway, there's no, like, government certification for it, we'll say. And there are people that abuse it. Yes, there are people that will just use it as an excuse to take their dog out and say they're a service animal or whatnot. It's unfortunate. There are people that abuse the hell out of it. But there's a way of dealing with that. You do it on a case-by-case basis. So if someone's in a restaurant and their animal's obviously not a service animal, and it's just barking and hopping up and down and running around and nipping at people or whatnot, then obviously the restaurant needs to ask that person to leave. And if they start screaming discrimination, you just say, well, sir, the animal is being rowdy or whatnot, blah, blah. You have to handle on a case-by-case basis. And yes, sometimes it might be difficult, but the other end of the spectrum is half the places I've gone into give me a hard time for having my dog, and I have to explain the law to them. I actually have a laminated copy of it with me. Most of them don't even know that there's a law on the books. They don't even know anything about the service animals. So it's a long, convoluted thing. I'll finish this rant up on the other side, because I know the break's sneaking up on us. Stay tuned. When we get back, I got a bunch of other things I want to get into. Don't go anywhere. I'm trying to give you a little insight. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. I am a bit tired tonight, as you could probably hear in the tone. I am pretty mellow tonight, even though I'm talking about, abuse of power and things like that. I'm pretty mellow tonight, and like as many of you know, if not maybe the newer listeners that just picked up and started listening to me a day or two ago, I recently had a pretty big operation on my leg, and about 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm still recovering. And man, I gotta tell you what, that just takes it out of you. Surgery knocks the crap out of you. But I'm just feeling a little bit tired today. Started doing physical therapy this week. Not really anything heavy, just range of motion exercises, so I can, learn to walk up and down stairs again. And just takes it out of you. It really knocks the crap out of you. As I sit and talk to you, some of you probably don't realize this, but I have my leg in a cast, and I'm chilling in my wheelchair as I sit and talk to you. So, just recovering from that and physical therapy and stuff, knocking the crap out of me. So if I'm a little tired tonight and I sound a little under the weather, that be it. But anyway, just finishing up with the service dog thing, the reason I wanted to share this with you and I wanted to get in this with you is because I want you all to understand that when you see someone with a service dog on the street, okay, it's not, okay, it could be, there's a slight chance it could be that it's not a service dog and it's somebody lying and pretending. You'll know. when you see the interaction with the animal and if the animal does anything for them, if it's just a family pet that someone doesn't give a crap about and has no training, or if it's actually an animal that's performing a service for them. You'll be able to tell just by the body language and the interaction between the two if you actually gave a crap and paid attention for more than 10 seconds, right? And didn't make a judgment based on ignorance. So don't just write somebody off with a service animal as somebody that wants to play with their pet in public places. These animals are very helpful. I could spend a whole 2 hours with people that have different service animals and letting them, give you their personal stories of how the dogs have saved their lives. I don't have to go over it and beat a dead horse into the ground. The point is, I wanted to share with you a little bit of personal stories so you can understand that yes, these animals do help. Okay, that's why I shared a little personal story from my wife, personal story about how my dog helps me, so you can understand a little bit. Rather than have somebody else come on, I can actually give you my own personal story, right? I could actually tell you, or rather than, me give you an analysis of something, but never having experienced it, I myself have. I experience it every day, so why not share that with you? Maybe, hopefully, help people have a better understanding of that. And I wanted to share the VA part of it with you because I think the VA rule, and I think everybody, veterans all across the board, whether you have a service dog or not, should contact the VA. Civilians should contact the VA, bombard Congress, call whoever, write letters. I mean, you know what? Sometimes that stuff works. I'm not saying it always does, but sometimes it works to change things, and sometimes it just works to piss them off. But either way, people need to get angry about this. I would at least call the VA. And there's a lot of groups that have been pushing for change already, and they still want further change. Push for guys with PTS to be able to have their service animal with them, because they need their service animal just like anybody else does, and it's not right. The VA says, well, the service animal doesn't really provide any, it doesn't really help. There's nothing but anecdotal evidence, I think is the way they put it in the wording of the law, or their finding on it, or whatever, their report, their study into it, or whatever it was. Just anecdotal evidence. Oh, really? But all the drugs that you guys have people on, that helps people, right? Guys don't commit suicide on those, do they? Oh, no. Sarcasm, ladies and gentlemen. Again, just go look up how guys that have PTS, have used service dogs to help them get through it, as opposed to the litany of crap that their doctors were putting them on. All the drugs and everything else that they had them on. It's not an excuse for someone to bring their animal with them. These dogs really do provide a service, and I can't explain to you the bond between a service animal and its handler. It's much tighter than, if you already have an animal, a dog or a cat, you understand a bond about pets, or whatever pet you have. You have an understanding about a bond between a person and their pets. This isn't a pet. That bond that you have, now magnify that about 10,000-fold. There are things I depend on my dog for. Monster is literally, she helps me every day. She's literally, a part of, my, not just a dog, but she's a very huge part of my life. That's why she sits in the studio with me. Now, sometimes I let her, I'll let her out and she'll go and hang out with my wife while I'm on air. But she doesn't like to be away from me. You can ask my wife. If Mrs. Popeye were here, she would tell you that dog, if I'm with her, and if the three of us are out somewhere, and for whatever reason, maybe I have to get up and go to the bathroom, right? Say we're at a restaurant, and I have to get up and use the bathroom. If I get up from the table, the dog will watch me the entire time I'm gone, and she stands on alert until I get back. It's just the way she is. She keeps it and unless you haven't had a service animal, you can't understand the bond between the handler and the animal. Or unless maybe if your family has had one, or someone in your family, then you understand because you can see it. But these animals, yes, they do help, but they're not people trying to bring their family pets in. That notion needs to get squashed and thrown out. And people need to realize that these animals are being used to help people, whether it's therapy, PTS, physical ailments, whatever. And I think it's great because the animals are providing services that, some humans can't or won't, okay? And in other cases that they were being replaced with medication before the animal came in, and the medication was doing nothing but destroying the person's life, both physiologically with their body and maybe perhaps with their relationships or whatnot. And now the service animal comes into play, and poof, everything is completely different for them. You'd be surprised how big of a difference a service animal can make in someone's life. You have no idea unless you've witnessed it yourself or benefited from it. Let's go do some research. It'll actually change the way you think about it if you already, don't understand it. And again, the reason I say that part to the civilians and not to, the VA or anything, but to the people at large to just listen to the show, the reason I wanted to even talk about this is just to shed some light on it. Help you understand that, yes, these animals do exist. One of the reasons that spurred me to do this was on the road trip, I ran into many people that didn't even know that there was a law that said that they had to allow me to have my service animal. And a couple times I would be challenged on it. And usually the manager of the establishment knew the rules because I would say, well, it's the law. And they were like, no, I know. I still had, like I said, I have a laminated card I carry with me to show people. I carry my wallet. And I say she's service animal, and she's got ID tags and everything else. I mean, she doesn't even have to have that, but she's got. I don't like to put the vest on her because it gets really hot down here, and I don't. Those vests, they're not very. They don't breathe too well. So I let her wear a harness so that she breathes, but I have ID tags on her. That's you can clearly see she's a service animal. She's a service dog. So I just want people to understand that these aren't just people taking their pets out with them because they're bored and all you got. These people are crazy taking them with their dogs everywhere. I'm sure some people think that of me. But until you know me and understand what she does for me, then, you have a better understanding. And if you think that my life has been changed by my animal, she helps me, she does. The people that benefit from seizure alert dogs or like the autistic kids that benefit from these dogs, you want to talk about a change of life experience. Watch an autistic kid. I mean, I've seen some of these kids that they don't ever come out of their shell. They're very introverted. They're not happy. They're frustrated, whatever. And they get a service dog, and it changes this kid's life. Brings the inner kid out again. It's amazing to see what these animals can do for humans. So, people need to stop looking at the situation, as, oh, they're just stupid dogs or, oh, the stupid person's pet. See, the part of that problem is that we, as humans, and this is through programming, generational wise and media and everything else, we are taught, and this isn't coming from, Greenpeace or anything else. I'm not trying to, Maitreya worship or, oh my God, blah, 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 PETA or anything like that. But we have been disconnected from Mother Nature and everything around us. We think that we own everything, that we have the right to, just lord over everything. So our views on people, like if you see someone with a service animal, people don't treat that service animal like a dog. They treat that service animal like it's a member of their family. And that bond is strong. They understand that it's not just a dumb dog. And people look at it like that or are ignorant of how beneficial these animals can be because we are so disconnected, because we have that attitude of, we're the top of the food chain. We're here to lord over everything. And animals don't have souls. They're just dumb creatures. Animals don't have any souls at all. We have this attitude that it's okay because we're only humans have souls and we can kill animals because they're here for meat and our entertainment and, pretty much just for us to play with, I guess. We don't look. We have this disconnection from just Mother Nature in general and everything around us that we look at things differently, and we have this arrogant way of looking at things. It's just like the arrogance that makes us think it's impossible for us to be for there to be any other life in the universe except us. It's that same arrogance that we're the end all be all, whether it's in space or here on our little blue marble that we call home. And I have to honestly tell you, when you see the connection, when you get rid of that ignorant way of thinking and you see how we're all interconnected, then you'll maybe have a better understanding of why these animals have such an effect on people and why they can be beneficial. And I push this because there's so many animals in pounds right now and in shelters that are going to be gassed and killed. And a lot of these dogs in the pounds can be paired up with somebody that has PTS or, especially like therapy dogs like that, or in some cases, they could even be hearing dogs. Like hearing dogs, you have to train, but it only takes about 4 months to train them to be a hearing dog. So if you have someone that maybe you could benefit from a hearing dog, or someone that's alone, someone that has PTS, you could pair them up with an animal, perhaps. Maybe have the person go with you to the pound, and a lot of times it's about how the animal connects with that person. But you could change that person's life, and you're rescuing an animal that was about to be needlessly slaughtered. Win-win. And this doesn't come from a hippie place. I'm not a tree-hugging hippie. I'm not running around with PETA. By the way, PETA executes something like 95% of the animals that they rescue. It's ridiculous. And they say, well, that's because most of the animals we get are in horrific states, so we have to execute them. It's for their own good. But, right, they euthanize something like 95% of the animals that they rescue every year. So PETA sucks. But that's besides the point. I'm not coming to you from a tree hugger point of view or anything like that. I'm coming to you from a straight up point of view that we need to respect other living things a little more. Okay? When I talk about that we're disconnected and stuff, that's where I'm coming from. It's part of the reason we're so easily manipulated. Why everybody always feels like, well, I feel like there's so much more. Like I'm just off track. I'm just off kilter. Well, that's why. Because we've been disconnected from everything else around us. I often share a story, and I've talked about this on there, and I'll say it again because it's important, from my childhood about this. My mother is the one that got me thinking about this in this way at a very young age, because when I was a child, she caught me in the backyard. We had a brick patio that my father had built, not a deck. I'm talking old school, brick patio in the ground. And I was out in the patio burning ants and stomping on them. And she literally caught me just stomping on the ants, just smashing them with my foot, just smash, smash, smash. And long story short, she said to me, how would you like if you got smashed? And I kind of couldn't comprehend it. So she told me to look up in the sky, and I remember this. She told me to look up, and I remember looking up in the sky. And she told me to pretend there was a huge foot up in the sky. So I envisioned this huge foot. And then she said, now envision that huge foot coming down and stomping on the house and crushing Dad, your brother, the dog, me, and you, and killing all of us and killing everyone you love and destroying your house and destroying your neighbors' houses and everybody they love. And I started crying. I was only like maybe 5 years old at the time. I started crying my eyes out. I remember this. I'm almost 40 years old, ladies and gentlemen, and I remember this. I can remember how the sky looked. Okay, I remember where I was sitting in my backyard. That's how vivid this memory is. I cried my eyes out. Cried. My mother made me feel horrible. I suddenly had this horrible feeling. Oh my God, why would you make me envision that in my head? And she said, now that you have that emotion, hold on to it for a second and look down. And I cleared the tears out of my eyes and I looked down at my feet and I saw all these dead, squished ants that I had been stepping on. And she said, now how do you think those ants feel? And it really made me think. It connected that I could be in the same place as those ants. She made me put myself in their shoes. Now that sounds trivial to some people. Popeye, ants, really? What do you care? Because they're another living creature. Okay? She was putting it into context for me. And it was a lesson I'm glad she taught me because I still remember it to this day. I had no right to extinguish those ants' lives for my entertainment just because I felt that I was above them and that I was, I'm human and you're a stupid little bug. Squish, 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 squish. To this day, I still, even if they're just ants in there, sometimes, depending on the situation, where I just, they end up getting squished. But 99% of the time, I escort them out of the house. Whether it's an ant, I've escorted snakes, lizards, frogs, ants, and spiders out of my apartment where I live because we live by the swamp. We don't live too far away from the Everglades. Only the Everglades are only a few miles from where I am, and actually where I live at one point was swamp. And I've had to remove snakes and stuff from my apartment before. And I mean, if it was a poison, if it was a rattlesnake and it was about to attack me, my wife, the dog, the cats, I'd kill it. Okay, that's a matter of survival. But there's no, if like a little, usually they're little swamp snakes, which eat nothing but rats and mosquitoes and other and spiders and stuff like that. So why would I kill the snake needlessly? It accidentally wandered in here looking for food. So, centipedes, all sorts of, it might be an insect to you, but it's still a living creature, right? So we really don't have the right to just squash it because we feel superior to it. Now, don't get me wrong. If a spider the size of my fist is walking around like something from arachnophobia, well, you got to go. Black widows, I won't play. You'll get crunched. If I can confirm you're a brown recluse, you dying. Sorry, those are spiders that are dangerous and deadly, and if I tried to capture them, they could harm me or possibly kill me or one of my animals or my wife. So in that situation, okay, that's a survival thing. I would have to kill it. But if there was a situation where I could capture it safely and let it go, I probably would, even though it's a poisonous spider. It didn't do anything really personally to me. It's not like it raided my bank account or anything like that, or insulted my wife or punched her or slapped her or something like that. You know what I mean? And obviously, if it bit her or something, well, then. Okay, poisonous spider, I'd probably kill it. But 99% of the time, I remove it. It sounds trivial and stupid. I've told my friends about this, and they're like, you're nuts. I would just kill it. But you know what? I can't. Because every time I go to do it, I remember that lesson that my mother taught me, and it rings in the back of my head. If there is no reason to take that animal's life, whether it's an insect, I used to hunt deer. In fact, one time I went hunting with my uncle, and I told him I missed. It's one of the first times I ever went hunting with him. And he busted my balls about it for years. That was such an easy shot. I can't believe you missed. You're a good shot. Blah, blah, blah. How could you miss? Blah. I didn't miss. I didn't shoot at the deer purposely. I threw it purposely. I threw the shot. Because when I was staring down the barrel of the gun and I was about to pull the trigger, the deer turned around and I stared it in the eyes. And I realized at that moment that there was really no reason for me to kill the deer other than for me to have my first confirmed deer hunting kill. To quote-unquote be a man. So I decided that I'm still a man, even if I don't have to blow away the deer just to get my first deer hunting kill. You see, my uncle, when he taught me how to hunt, one thing he taught me was that you shouldn't, we hunted, we went hunting every season. You got one deer, 2 deer maybe, but it never took more than you were going to eat. You had to eat the deer. There's a lot of things about it. You couldn't just kill the deer for sport and leave it there in the woods and stuff. But at that moment, when I looked at the deer, I realized that I didn't need to kill that deer to survive, did I? I mean, at that moment, at that time, I did have access to grocery stores and to meat. And I was a young kid, so I was obviously living at my house. My mother would go food shopping, so I didn't really need to kill the deer to survive. So I didn't do it. I just didn't kill it. And I let my uncle bust my chops for a very long time. In fact, I don't even think I ever told him the truth about it. I told my mother the truth finally one day. He was over, and after he had left, he had been busting my chops about it. And I looked her in the eye. I said, "Do you want to know the truth about that story?" And this is when I was in my 20s. This is one time I was a little older. And I told her the truth. I could have killed the deer. I could have shot it. I had it dead to rights. And I would have only had to shoot it once from the position I was in. It would have gone right down. And I knew it was there, and I had it dead to rights before it knew I was there. Whether it smelled me or whatever, it turned around and looked at me. But I had it. I could have killed it. But I decided I didn't need to, because I really didn't need to kill something else to prove that I'm a man. I didn't need to needlessly take another living creature's life just to prove that I'm a man and exert my manhood. Now, don't get me wrong. I know how to. I've hunted, I've gotten deer, and I've eaten them. Okay, but I didn't. I know how to dress a deer. I know how to survive if I had to, but I chose not to just take the deer's life that day because I didn't need to. Then we had already caught. My uncle had already gotten a deer. He had already gotten one the day before. So it's not like if we did need the meat to survive, we already had one. It's not like I couldn't have let that one go and caught another one. It was not necessary at that time and moment for me to take that animal's life. Did somebody else take its life? Could be. Could have gotten hit by a car. Could have gotten a disease and died. I'm sure it's dead by now because this is probably about 20 some odd years ago. Yeah, it is actually. It's about 23, 24 years ago now. But I didn't need to kill that deer. So I just didn't do it. I mean, there wasn't a need to take that animal's life. My uncle taught me also, we used to go out on doe days. We used to get doe tags. And doe tags are during a doe day. It's the one time of the hunting season that you can get female deer. You're not supposed to get them because they make little deer, remember, for the next season. And only when you have doe tags on a doe day, you're allowed to go. And we would go out with our guns, but we took the guns with us for self-defense pretty much from the drunk hunters. That's the way my uncle would put it. We would usually take cameras and binoculars, and on doe days, rather than kill the female deer, we would just track the herd for the day and practice our skills of tracking and stalking without getting caught by the deer, which is much harder than a human being. Okay? And we would practice our skills at that, and we would just watch the deer in their natural habitat. And he taught me that you don't always have to kill them. Sometimes, hunting, you can just hunt and watch them and, become one with nature and kind of understand things. He's the guy that taught me how to track and hunt and everything else. The point is, not only was I taught how to survive off nature by, taking an animal's life if I had to and how to dress it and gut it and do all that, but I was also taught a reverence and a respect for it that I didn't have to. Now, I didn't, like I said, I don't remember if I ever explained to my uncle later on, if I ever told him that story about the deer or not, when I got older. But at the time, I just felt that, he would bust my chops. Oh, you missed it, ha, ha, ha. So I just let him have his fun or whatnot, and I didn't tell him. But it was his, the lesson my mother taught me, things that my father taught me, and, things that my uncle had taught me during hunting and teaching me how to track and stuff in the woods. I guess it gave me a different connection to nature and things around me, or at least it made me understand that there is a connection, and that we're not at the top of the food chain. I wanted to get off on that subject as well. So I know I went over the service animal thing, and I know I kind of went off onto this tangent, but this was important to go off on because I constantly remind people of this, and I think sometimes it gets lost with everything else that I'm talking about. So since I was talking about a connection between humans and animals anyway, I figured, why not bring this up? And it's the truth. I think one of the ways that we're going to be able to get through this and get things back on track the right way, and people say we have to start over again. Well, one of the ways to start over again is to maybe rethink the way that we're connected to the world and everything else around us, and maybe understand that our actions do have direct effect on everything around us. And, maybe we should realize, if just realizing that alone, not even if, just realizing that alone, that realization would change things on such a vast scale, because it's not the huge things that are going to change things. It's the small ways that people think, just a small change in the way people think about certain things. And not for the bad, but and not propaganda-wise or mind control, but for the good, actually. And this small way of the way they think or look at things will have a huge impact. So I wanted to go off on that unplanned rant there for a second about, how we're disconnected. But we can get disconnected. Don't get discouraged. We can still reconnect. That's the beauty of it. Remember, an error doesn't become a mistake unless you refuse to correct it. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I went off on my rant, talked about service dogs, talked about the thuggery going on in New Jersey by their governor right now. People need to get rid of him. Of course, people in Jersey won't. That's one of the reasons I left that state, because unfortunately it is the way it is up there. Anyway, anybody that lives there knows what I'm talking about. But there's a few other things I want to get into before we run out of time, and not all of them I'm going to be able to get into. I'll have to get into a few things tomorrow. The drug war thing I'll get into tomorrow. But I want to focus on the gun control issue thing that I was talking about earlier, how they being the powers that shouldn't be, the media, and the media, I should say, not the media. It's not like the media is doing it itself. They're just the lapdogs of their masters. But the powers that shouldn't be and their lapdog media are brainwashing people to hate guns, think differently. Now, remember, Eric Holder actually said that back in the 90s he was speaking at a women's club event, if I remember correctly, and he basically said that we have to brainwash people into thinking a different way about guns. Now, you can go on YouTube and you can look it up yourself. You can find the video. It's right there. Just type in Eric Holder brainwash guns. You can... I think his exact quote was, "We basically have to brainwash, people into thinking a different way about guns," if I remember correctly. But something along those lines. Anyway, you can find the video and the audio up on YouTube. And this was in the 90s, right? So understanding that they had that mindset back then, which means that they were probably at least planning something, if not putting it into the works, right? Look what's going on now. Now, mind you, there were mass shootings. Okay, there were school shootings that happened that were very questionable, okay, in the 90s. But if you look at what's going on today, and there were always shootings and murders and stabbings and stuff going on even back in the 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever. Murder has been going on since man's been walking around on this planet. I'm sure the first murder was one caveman smashing in another caveman's skull with a rock or a spear or something, thereof, or pushing one off a cliff. Murder is not something new. Anyway, they want people to believe that, more guns equal crime, and that no guns equals no bad guys, and, you'll be safe. But we haven't really witnessed that. Anyway, murder has been going on for a long time, and it's not something new. Of course, if you watch the mainstream media, you would think that there's a huge uptick in violence. But to be quite honest with you, violent crime has dropped in this country. But the media, and I would say pretty much like the late 90s, early 2000s, especially with like cable news networks and stuff, but very, very heavily, obviously, since Obama's been in office, but even before he was in office, they would focus on gun stories. And of course, there's always the "if it bleeds, it leads." But if you notice, whenever there's the chance of gun legislation in the air, right, gun control legislation, or they're talking about it, if you watch the news, especially, again, since the Obama administration and the anti-gun crowd are really going after the Second Amendment, if you watch the news, all you see is an uptick in shootings. And again, they started covering, local shootings a very long time ago. But over the course of time, and as the anti-gun agenda gets pushed further and further along, you'll notice that right along with that come reports in the news every day of people being shot, and, oh my God, little Johnny found his parents' gun and blew his brains out, and a teenage kid, maybe accidentally shot himself. They show you these reports every day, and you'd think, oh my God, there's this rampant uptick in violence with guns, and they call it gun violence or gun crime, right? Oh my God, innocent kids are shooting themselves, or kids are taking guns to school, or this or that and the other thing. What they don't tell you is this kind of stuff happens every day. Every day. It's not a recent uptick. It's not because, oh my God, people are buying more and more guns. It happens. Maybe somebody didn't teach their kid correctly about gun safety. They left the gun out, whatever. It does happen. There are accidental shootings. There are murders and stuff, or somebody might have broken into someone's house and shot somebody. Maybe somebody got mad, they got in a fight, and they pulled their gun out, and they lost their temper, and they killed somebody or whatever. But that's not every gun owner, by the way. And these all get focused on, muggings, attacking, anything with a gun gets focused on by the media, and it gets thrown out there now. And it's been going on for a very long time, but in the past, 5 years, it's been ramped up heavily. And they do it because the underlying direction that they're trying to push you in, we'll say, is fear. What they're doing is they're covering every time there's a shooting because they want you to hear the word gun, shooting, gun, shooting, or the words gun and shooting and gun violence, their little phrase that they've come up with, like assault rifle. They want you to hear this stuff, and they'll even throw assault rifle in there. They constantly mention AR-15s and AK-47s or assault rifles. Even if someone was shot with a pistol, they'll find a way to work the dreaded assault rifle into the story. Well, that's done for a reason. They're programming you. They're brainwashing you ever so slightly. How many times do you see now when there's a problem with a gun or something that goes on? What are you seeing in the news when they do they ask the local residents? What do people say? Oh my God, this crazy world we live in, guns, oh my God, all this gun violence. Every time I turn on the news, there's always more violence and more gun crimes now. We should do something about all these guns. It's working. They're brainwashing the general public to be afraid. See, what they're doing is, not only are they using fear, and these people are smart, these bastards, they know what they're doing. Not only are they using fear to scare you and emotionally rile you up and keep you off balance, because when you're afraid and you're all emotional, you're not paying attention, and you're not rationally thinking. Not only are they doing that, but they're saturating your brain. They're oversaturating it with the words gun control, violence, shooting, school shooting, assault rifle, gun control. They're doing it, I repeated gun control because that one's really oversaturated. They do that on purpose because not only are they pushing the fear vibe, but on top of it, they're oversaturating your brain with the word gun. Therefore, your brain, anytime a gun, whether it be a toy gun, an airsoft gun, a real gun, anything, anytime you even see a gun, how do you see a lot of the public, not all of them, but how do you see the ignorant people react? Oh my God, a gun! As if the gun would jump out and just start shooting people on its own. Good thing that guy was there to hold that gun back. That son of a bitchin' thing was going to kill everybody. As if the gun's animate and has its own understanding of the universe and is a murderous son of a bitch. That's what they would have you believe. I mean, this is the idiocy that they try to get people to buy. And unfortunately, believe it or not, there is a large group of the general public that do buy into this. And they don't even realize why. It's because they're being programmed. So, I mean, why do you think you see teachers overreacting? A kid chews his Pop-Tart into the shape of a mountain, and they think it's the shape of a gun, and the school flips out, and they want to, expel the kid and all this other stuff. And stupid things like that. Kids, getting thrown out and suspended because they have a soldier that has a toy gun or a G.I. Joe that has a toy gun. Literally like 2 inches long or 3 inches long, and it's, oh my God, you can't bring a gun to school. And they in one case, a couple cases, kids have been arrested. For what? And yes, you do. That is, a lot of it is largely in part due to the political leanings of these teachers and stuff. But where does that come from? Well, they're programmed. You think these people woke up and came out of their mother's wombs and were like, oh, I don't like guns. Some of them probably came from conservative families, and maybe they were even around guns. Most of the time, that's not the case. Because usually if you're exposed to guns at a young age, you don't have the fear of them. But there are cases where people's family might have guns and they just didn't like them or whatnot. Maybe they were afraid of them for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, that topic was never covered. So people's ignorance on so many topics is what causes our problems, ladies and gentlemen. Ignorance is one of the biggest problems in this world. Not just this country, but this world. Powers that shouldn't be can control things because of people's ignorance. People that are awake, and I even went through this phase where I used to run around calling people sheep all the time, and I would say, what are you stupid out there? But I only did that for a short period of time before I realized that, I came from that very same spot. So I shouldn't be looking at it like that, because I was once like that too, and that actually deters people when you make fun of them and stuff. And you start calling them names. But that's how they've dumbed us down. I mean, we're programmed every day. Even people that are quote-unquote awake and in the know are programmed. When was the last time you went food shopping? I had this conversation with a lady in the aisle at Whole Foods tonight. When I went food shopping earlier today, I had this conversation with this lady about this. She said, I came in here for 2 things, and she ended up walking out with like $130 worth of stuff. She couldn't figure out why. I said to her, because of the way the store is laid out, that's why. And she said, well, every time I come here, I swear to myself I'm only going to come for one thing, and then I come in here, and it's because the way the store is laid out. You're programmed. By the time you come to the end of the checkout, you have a ton of stuff that you probably didn't even need. You have to go in there. One of the best ways to food shop is have a list and go in when you're not hungry. Because that when you're hungry, your brain is thinking about eating food and consuming food, and you're not really, it's almost like you're in survival mode to a certain degree. You're not really thinking rationally. That's why you end up buying stuff that you don't want later on. So eat a snack or something before you go food shopping, or a meal before you go food shopping, and have a list and stick only to that list and get nothing else on that list, because this food store is laid out purposely to confuse you and to drag you. That's why they have butter and bread and everything usually in the back of the store, and milk, the basic necessities, eggs. So all that stuff is towards the back of the store, so you have to go past everything else. And then the catchy labels and the names and everything else, all of that's made too to catch your eye and mess with your brain subconsciously, even if you don't realize it, and catch your attention, get you to buy stuff. Why do you think they have lighters and candy and all that stupid horoscope crap at the checkout? It's laid out for you to buy that crap there. That's called impulse items. Basic Marketing 101. Anyway, so that type of mind control, just that example alone, look, you're being controlled when you go food shopping. So don't think you're not being controlled, or your loved ones' thoughts aren't being controlled about guns and everything else. And then you have like MSNBC, CNN constantly scaring people. Oh my God, assault weapons, rifles, fully automatic. They lie about the background checks. They lie about things. A major portion of the problem would be solved if a lot of these criminals were prosecuted under the laws already on the books. But like in Chicago, one of the biggest problems they have isn't the fact that there are citizens that have guns. No, one of the biggest problems is the fact that they have, they have a gun ban, and a federal judge just actually overturned the Chicago gun ban. But they have prosecutors that won't enforce the laws that are already on the books. So if you have prosecutors that won't enforce laws that are already on the books, that really doesn't help the situation, does it? Anyway, I have a piece of audio I want to play for you guys tonight. And this is from the 90s when they were debating legislation about the assault weapons ban back then. And I've played this on past shows. But it's a thing I call semi-auto versus fully auto. And it's about 9 minutes long. I want to play this for you really quick, just for the listeners that have maybe never heard this and aren't familiar with firearms at all. This is Officer Leroy Pyle, and they put this video together actually for Congress so they would understand the difference between what a semi-automatic weapon is and a fully automatic weapon is. And I want to play this because there's so much propaganda out there twisting the truth about what a semi-automatic weapon is, because you hear people all the time and see them on these cable news networks. Oh my God, we need to get rid of these semi-automatic handguns. They're a menace to society. You can fire around as fast as you can pull the trigger. Okay, you should be squeezing the trigger. But anyway, the point is, let me play this audio for you, because this will definitely help you understand, if you don't know already, the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons, okay? Because the media is not going to tell you. In fact, they don't even know themselves, and neither do most of Congress. Let Officer Leroy Pyle explain it to you. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Leroy Pyle. I'm a police officer in San Jose, California. And during most of my 25-year career, I've been involved in firearms training, a little training, education, and also competition. As a result, I've also gotten involved with private citizens using firearms, a lot of safety, schools, and a lot of competition. I'm familiar with some of the controversy involved with firearms now, a lot of emotions. In fact, we're about an hour and a half away from Stockton, California, where I'm sure you're aware of a recent tragedy. I don't mean to belittle that tragedy. I can share those emotions. About a week after that, I had two of my partners killed on the streets of San Jose, so I understand the emotions. But part of my job as a police officer for all these years has been to cut through the emotions and get to the facts. That's the only way you can settle an issue. You have to have the truth. I'd like to share a little bit of the facts with you, because I honestly feel that some of the emotions here have impaired any ability to make a good judgment. I have some firearms available that I'd like to show you. I have some in fully automatic, I have some in semi-automatic, and I have some that were designed for hunting. I'd like to show you a comparison, and I think if you have a little better understanding of what these firearms really are for, what they do, what they look like, you too can maybe cut through some of the emotions and make what I hope would be a a good decision. The confusion and misunderstanding over firearms is a result of the mislabeling. I have firearms here on the table. I have a fully automatic assault rifle, and many times the press likes to use those words, trigger words, if I might add. Assault rifle, military, fully automatic. This is a fully automatic assault rifle. This is banned, it's prohibited, and limited almost virtually to police and military use. A citizen cannot go into the store and purchase this. And yet, this is usually one that's displayed on your television set. These are usually the terms used by the news media. Then they'll pick up a semi-automatic firearm. This is a semi-automatic firearm. The primary difference is that the assault rifle, the fully automatic firearm, you pull the trigger once and it will repeatedly fire and will continue to fire until all rounds are expended. This is a semi-automatic firearm. You fire once with each pull of the trigger. If you notice, these two firearms look alike. They look very much alike. They operate entirely differently. This one is legal, semi-automatic. This one is an illegal, fully automatic. They look alike. Here, I have a hunting rifle. This is also semi-automatic and one used for hunting game. This also, being semi-automatic, fires one round with each pull of the trigger. If you notice, these two do not look alike, but they function alike. They are virtually the same, only cosmetically different. It's important to keep that in mind. A person will say, this is fully automatic. The uninformed, most of the time the press, will refer to this as a fully automatic assault rifle and this as a fully automatic assault rifle. Please, by definition, this is the assault rifle. This is the only one that's fully automatic. It's prohibited for purchase in the United States except by police and law enforcement. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I've got my hearing protection here. We'll take these firearms out and I'll shoot them one at a time, and you can see for yourself just exactly how they operate and exactly how they're alike in some ways and very different in other ways. This is the fully automatic firearm. It's an AK-47. Primary feature is with one pull of the trigger, it will fire repeatedly. It'll fire until you either release the trigger or you expend all the rounds. Let me show you. This is a semi-automatic firearm. A look-alike, but very much different. One pull of the trigger, you get one round. You get another round, you have to pull the trigger again. Let me show you that. This too is a semi-automatic. The feature with semi-automatic, one pull of the trigger, one round. You notice the action very similar to the other firearms, but very much different from the fully automatic rifle. This too is a hunting rifle. Again, one pull of the trigger, one round. A semi-automatic is just that, semi-automatic. One pull of the trigger, one round. That's a technology that's over 100 years old. If you ban that technology, you ban about 20 million firearms. Let's take a little closer look at them. This is the semi-automatic technology I referred to. You notice cosmetically there is a difference, but if you get to the working parts, the actual action, they're identical. In fact, let me show you just exactly how identical. This is the military look-alike. If you take off a cover, the working part compared to this hunting rifle, take off the cover, and the working parts are identical. Again, semi-automatic technology. One pull of the trigger, one round. Entirely different from the military fully automatic assault rifles. I'd like to show you how a simple cosmetic change could lend to the confusion in this attempt to try to define something as an assault rifle. This is a very popular, very common semi-automatic rifle. It's in a very popular and common caliber, that's caliber .223. I'd like you to watch while I just change the looks and see if you can't see how it might get a little confusing. As you can see, just changing from wood to plastic makes a big difference in its appearance and probably would even change a person's opinion. And is that what makes a difference, whether it has a wooden stock or if it has a plastic stock and maybe a bipod? Actually, just like in those other firearms that I was demonstrating, the action is the same. The semi-automatic mechanism is common to millions of firearms, not just the rifle. I'm sure any of you shoot trap or skeet, you know that semi-automatic shotgun is very, very popular. For home defense or for target practice, the semi-automatic pistol is very, very popular. In fact, much more popular nowadays than the revolver is. Terms like assault rifle are hard to define. I don't know what an assault rifle is. I doubt very much if a member of BATF could tell you exactly what an assault rifle is.
Any type of legislation that's framed or drafted in relation to assault, what we're referring to here this morning is assault or paramilitary type weapons, there will be an inherent difficulty in drafting this. And the difficulty is that it's going to be very hard to draw a clear distinction between what we have as an assault type rifle and a semi-automatic sporting weapon. The assault weapon has a very menacing appearance to it. But this gun, technologically, as far as how it fires, is pretty much the same as a sporting semi-automatic rifle, with the exception that this firearm has an exotic type appearance to it. Put a standard type stock on it and remove the bayonet mount. It would also even have the appearance of a sporting type weapon.
Frequently hear a reference to the fact that a semi-automatic rifle can be easily converted to fully automatic. That's not true.
Why? Because these military-style assault weapons of today are not easily and readily convertible without extensive knowledge and modifications to the weapon and or a substitution of available parts. Now, in my 12 years within the unit, considering the enormous amount of firearms that we have taken into custody, and that's over 50,000, I would say, and these including the ones from the hardcore gangs and from the drug dealers, our unit has never, ever had one AK-47 converted, one Ruger Mini-14 converted, an H&K 91-93 never converted, an AR-180 never converted. So this media blitz of many of these assault weapons or supposed military-style weapons are being converted to full automatic is not true.
So millions of law-abiding citizens own this semi-automatic technology. It would really be a shame if you legislated against that technology, and it would be really sad if that legislation was as a result of just some confusion and misunderstanding, and especially by mislabeling. I hope I've been able to help you with some of this information.
Now, as you can see, even with this information available to them, there are many in Congress that have no idea what they're talking about. And then there are those that do have every idea of what they're talking about, and they don't care. They're really more about control than safety and anything else, and they really don't care about you being able to defend yourself, and that's why they push for no guns, because the whole reason is tyrants don't want the peasants to have weapons and be able to defend themselves. It's that simple. They want to take away your guns, ladies and gentlemen, not to make you safer, but because you won't go into the boxcar willingly. That's why. You want me to be blunt? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's why they want gun control. That's why they want registration. Registration leads to confiscation every time. Every time. They want to be able to confiscate the guns. Why? Because, as I said, you're not going to get into a boxcar willingly. That's why. They don't care about the kids. They don't care about your safety. Get over it. If they cared about your safety, you'd have weapons. Wasn't it the chief of Detroit that just said, I think it was, the chief of the Detroit Police Department, just came out and said people should get guns? I think it was Detroit that said that. There's chiefs and sheriffs all over the place, all over the country have been saying that people should arm themselves. You should. Semi-automatic technology is over 100 years old. Shall we go back to ox cart too, because people have car accidents and people drive drunk? I mean, I guess people can't be trusted to drive anymore because there's drunk drivers, so we should get rid of cars and all modern transport and go back to ox cart. right?
This is Sparta!
Because that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, we're out of time. Thanks for listening to me rant tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I enlightened you somewhat. If not, oh well, I tried, right? Nah, I'm sure you were enlightened. But at least one thing I ranted about. Anyway, I'll be back again live tomorrow night. I love you all. The solutions to our problems are most definitely an inside job. I'm out.